Hey there! Have you ever stopped to think about just how incredible the ocean really is? I mean, we see it all the time in photos, movies, or maybe during a beach vacation. But there's so much more to it than just waves and water. Beneath the surface lies a whole other world, strange creatures, mysterious landscapes, and natural phenomena that seem almost unbelievable. The ocean covers over 70% of our planet, and yet we still know so little about it. It's full of secrets, surprises, and systems that keep the Earth alive. So today, I'm going to take you on a journey beneath the waves. We're going to explore some of the most amazing, mind-blowing facts about the ocean that will change the way you see this massive blue world forever. Trust me, some of these facts will leave you thinking, wait, how did I not know that? All right, grab your curiosity and let's dive in. 1. The ocean is home to the largest living structure on Earth. Did you know that the ocean is actually home to the largest living structure on Earth? Yep, you heard that right. And no, it's not a whale or any giant sea creature. It's actually the Great Barrier Reef. This incredible natural wonder stretches for over 2,300 kilometers along the northeast coast of Australia. That's longer than the distance from New York to Miami. And it's so massive, it can actually be seen from space. How cool is that? But here's what's even more amazing. It's not just a reef. It's a living, breathing ecosystem made up of billions of tiny coral polyps, which are actually living organisms. These tiny creatures work together to build the coral structures that form this gigantic reef system. And get this, it's home to an unbelievable amount of marine life. We're talking over 1,500 species of fish, 400 different types of coral, and thousands of other species like sea turtles, sharks, mollusks, and even some of the most colorful sea creatures you'll ever see. The Great Barrier Reef is like a bustling underwater city. It's full of life, full of color, and full of surprises. It's one of the most diverse and complex ecosystems on the planet. Honestly, it's hard to believe something this massive and vibrant exists just beneath the surface of the water. It's also a reminder of how important our oceans are, not just for marine life, but for the entire planet. Protecting places like the Great Barrier Reef isn't just about saving fish or coral, it's about preserving a vital part of Earth's natural heritage. 2. The ocean has its own waterfalls and lakes. Now, here's something that's going to completely blow your mind. Did you know that the ocean actually has its own waterfalls and lakes? Sounds crazy, right? I mean, we usually think of lakes and waterfalls as something you find on land, in the mountains or forests, but they actually exist underwater, deep in the ocean. Let me explain how this works. In some parts of the ocean, especially in really deep areas, there are pockets of water that have different temperatures, salinity levels, and densities compared to the surrounding seawater. These differences cause the denser, saltier water to sink and flow along the ocean floor, almost like it's a river or a waterfall running through the sea. One of the most mind-blowing examples is called the Denmark Strait Cataract. It's located between Greenland and Iceland, and it's actually the largest waterfall on Earth, but it's underwater. Water from the Greenland Sea, which is cold and dense, flows underneath warmer, lighter water from the Erminger Sea, creating a massive underwater current that drops over 3,500 meters. That's over 11,500 feet. Just to put that into perspective, that's 3 times taller than Niagara Falls. And then there are underwater lakes. Yep, actual lakes beneath the ocean. These are called brine pools, and they're made up of extremely salty water that doesn't mix with the surrounding seawater. Because the salinity is so high, these pools appear as shimmering, separate bodies of water on the seafloor. Sometimes you can even see shorelines, waves, and ripples, just like a lake on land. It's surreal. What's even crazier is that these lakes and waterfalls often host unique creatures that have adapted to those extreme conditions, some of which you won't find anywhere else in the world. So next time you picture the ocean, remember, it's not just a big body of water. It's a whole world of rivers, waterfalls, and even lakes hidden beneath the waves. Nature is way more bizarre and fascinating than we think. 3. There are mountains taller than Everest under the sea. Okay, here's another ocean fact that might just flip everything you thought you knew about our planet. Did you know that the tallest mountain on Earth isn't actually Mount Everest? I know, Everest always gets the spotlight, right? But there's a mountain that's even taller, and it's hiding beneath the waves. It's called Mauna Kea, and it's a massive dormant volcano located in Hawaii. Now, if you look at it from sea level, it stands around 4,200 meters tall, which doesn't sound like it beats Everest. But here's the catch. Most of Mauna Kea's height is hidden below the ocean's surface. If you measure it from its true base on the ocean floor all the way to its peak, Mauna Kea is over 10,000 meters tall. That's even taller than Mount Everest, which stands at about 8,848 meters above sea level. Pretty wild, right? So while Everest is the highest point above sea level, Mauna Kea is technically the tallest mountain from base to summit. And it's been sitting there, quietly towering under the ocean, while Everest steals all the fame. And guess what? Mauna Kea isn't the only underwater mountain. The ocean floor is literally covered in underwater mountain ranges called mid-ocean ridges. In fact, the Mid-Atlantic Ridge is the longest mountain range on Earth. It stretches across the entire Atlantic Ocean and is mostly submerged. It just goes to show that there's so much more going on beneath the surface than we realize. The ocean isn't just deep, it's home to some of the largest and most dramatic geological features on the entire planet. We just don't see them because they're underwater. 4. The deep sea is darker than you think. All right, let's talk about something that most people don't really think about, the darkness of the deep sea. Now, you might assume that once you go a bit underwater, things get a little dim. But trust me, it's way darker than you think. In fact, the deep sea is one of the darkest places on Earth. Here's why. Sunlight can only reach about 200 meters below the ocean's surface. That zone is called the sunlight zone, and it's the only part of the ocean that gets enough light for photosynthesis to happen. Most of the marine life we're familiar with, like colorful fish and coral reefs, lives here. But once you go past that 200-meter mark, you enter what scientists call the twilight zone. It's not pitch black yet, but the light is so faint that it's almost like permanent dusk. It's murky, mysterious, and things start to look a lot different down there. And then, after around 1,000 meters, you reach the midnight zone, and this is where things get really intense. There is zero sunlight in this part of the ocean. It's pitch black, absolute darkness, 24 hours a day. Imagine being in a cave so deep that you can't even see your own hand in front of your face. Except you're underwater, and it's freezing cold with crushing pressure. And here's the wild part. Life still exists down there. Even in this extreme environment, there are creatures that have adapted in the most fascinating ways. Some of them don't even have eyes because there's no light to see. Others have evolved to glow in the dark using a process called bioluminescence, which we'll talk about in the next section. But the point is, the ocean isn't just deep, it's incredibly dark, and yet it's still teeming with life. It really makes you realize just how alien and mysterious our own planet can be. We always look to space for the unknown, but some of the strangest, most unexplored places are right here on Earth, hidden beneath the waves. 5. Bioluminescent creatures light up the darkness. All right, now this next fact is one of my personal favorites. It's like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. Even though the deep sea is pitch black, it's far from lifeless. In fact, there's something magical happening down there, because some creatures actually create their own light. Yep, it's called bioluminescence, and it's one of the most fascinating survival tricks in nature. So, what is it exactly? Bioluminescence is when a living organism produces light through a chemical reaction inside its body. It's kind of like natural glow sticks, but way cooler. And this isn't just a rare thing. Thousands of marine species have this ability. You've probably heard of some of them, like the famous anglerfish with that little glowing lure hanging in front of its face to attract prey. Creepy and clever, right? But anglerfish are just the beginning. There are glowing jellyfish, squid that flash bright pulses, tiny plankton that light up in waves when disturbed, and even deep-sea shrimp that squirt glowing clouds to escape predators. It's like the ocean has its own natural light show happening miles below the surface. What's really interesting is that these creatures don't glow just for fun. There's a purpose behind it. Some use their glow to lure in prey, others use it to attract mates, and some even use it to scare off predators. There's one species of fish that can actually flash a light underneath its body to cancel out its shadow, so it becomes invisible from below. And the craziest part? We're still discovering new bioluminescent species all the time. The ocean is so unexplored that we've probably only scratched the surface of what's really down there. So while the deep sea may be one of the darkest places on Earth, it's also one of the most dazzling. 6. The ocean produces over half of the world's oxygen. All right, here's a fact that might completely surprise you. The ocean produces more than half of the oxygen we breathe. Crazy, right? Most of us grow up thinking that trees are the main source of oxygen on Earth. And yes, forests are incredibly important, but the real MVPs are actually floating in the ocean. So who's responsible for this amazing job? Meet the tiny but mighty phytoplankton. These are microscopic plant-like organisms that live near the surface of the ocean, and they act just like plants on land. They use sunlight to perform photosynthesis, which means they absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen. Even though they're invisible to the naked eye, they're incredibly powerful. In fact, scientists estimate that 50 to 80% of the oxygen in our atmosphere comes from these little guys. So basically, every second breath you take is thanks to the ocean. And it's not just phytoplankton. There are also algae and seaweed that contribute to this underwater oxygen factory. Together, they create a kind of living, breathing system that helps keep our planet in balance. But here's the thing. This system is delicate. Pollution, climate change, rising ocean temperatures, and overfishing are all having an impact on phytoplankton populations. And if we mess with the ocean too much, it could affect the air we breathe. So next time you're out in nature taking a deep breath of fresh air, remember, it's not just the trees around you that are helping. It's the vast blue ocean and the trillions of tiny organisms working silently beneath the surface, keeping our planet alive. Amazing, right? 7. There's an entire world of sound beneath the waves. Most people think of the ocean as this quiet, peaceful place, but the truth is, it's actually full of sound. Beneath the waves, there's an entire world of noise that we barely notice from the surface. For example, did you know that whales can communicate across hundreds of miles using low-frequency calls? Their songs are haunting, beautiful, and incredibly powerful. Each species has its own distinct patterns and tones. It's like they're singing their own language underwater. Then you've got dolphins, which are basically the chatterboxes of the sea. They use a mix of clicks, whistles, and even something like sonar to talk to each other and navigate their surroundings. It's called echolocation, and it's so precise they can identify objects, fish, or even other dolphins from far away. And, believe it or not, even tiny creatures make noise. There's a species called the snapping shrimp, sometimes called the pistol shrimp, that can create one of the loudest sounds in the ocean by snapping its claw so fast it creates a tiny bubble that bursts with a loud pop. The sound is so intense, it can actually stun prey. But it's not just animal sounds. There are also natural sounds like underwater earthquakes, shifting tectonic plates, and even the sound of waves rolling over the seafloor. And then, of course, there's the not-so-natural side. Noise pollution from ships, sonar, and underwater drilling, which is becoming a serious problem for marine life. Sound travels much faster and farther in water than in air, so everything underwater is amplified. For marine animals, sound isn't just background noise. It's how they find food, communicate, migrate, and survive. So next time you think of the ocean as a silent world, just remember, it's actually one of the noisiest and most active soundscapes on the planet. We just can't hear most of it from where we stand. 8. The ocean contains untapped energy and resources. Here's something that not a lot of people talk about. The ocean isn't just full of life and mystery. It's also packed with incredible energy and resources that we've barely even begun to tap into. Think about it. Every wave, every tide, every current, it's all energy in motion, and scientists have been working on ways to harness that natural power. There's something called wave energy and tidal energy, which basically means using the movement of the ocean to generate electricity. It's clean, renewable, and unlike solar or wind, it's constant. The ocean never stops moving. Then there's offshore wind farms, which take advantage of strong winds over the ocean to spin turbines and produce massive amounts of energy. In fact, some of the biggest renewable energy projects in the world are being built out at sea right now. But energy is just one part of it. The ocean also contains valuable resources, from minerals and metals on the seafloor to compounds in marine plants and organisms that could be used in medicine, technology, and even food production. There's something called marine biotechnology, where scientists study marine life to find things like new antibiotics, cancer treatments, or even eco-friendly materials. Some researchers are even exploring deep-sea mining, which involves extracting rare minerals used in electronics and batteries from the ocean floor, though that's a pretty controversial topic due to environmental concerns. And let's not forget about desalination, the process of turning seawater into drinkable freshwater. As freshwater becomes more scarce in some parts of the world, this technology could be a game changer for the future. So in a way, the ocean isn't just a natural wonder, it's also a potential powerhouse for the world. But here's the thing, while all of this sounds exciting, we have to be careful. Because if we start pulling resources without protecting the ecosystems they come from, we could end up doing more harm than good. That's why sustainable ocean development is so important. We've only scratched the surface of what the ocean can offer, but if we use it wisely, it could help power our future in more ways than we realize. 9. The deepest point on Earth is in the ocean. Here's another mind-blowing ocean fact. The deepest point on Earth isn't on land. It's deep beneath the ocean's surface. It's called the Mariana Trench, and it's located in the western Pacific Ocean near Guam. And at the very bottom of that trench is a place known as the Challenger Deep, which is the deepest known point on our entire planet. Now get this. Challenger Deep is about 11,000 meters deep. That's roughly 36,000 feet. To give you some perspective, if you dropped Mount Everest into the trench, the peak of the mountain would still be more than a mile underwater. That's how deep it is. The pressure down there is absolutely insane, over 1,000 times greater than what we feel at sea level. It's so intense that if you sent an ordinary submarine or machine down there, it would be crushed instantly. Only specially designed deep-sea vessels have ever made it all the way to the bottom. And what's even more fascinating is that life still exists down there. Scientists have discovered strange, resilient creatures living in those pitch-black, high-pressure conditions, things like snailfish, amphipods, and microorganisms that have adapted to survive in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Very few people have actually visited Challenger Deep. It's a place more remote than the surface of the moon. But every time we send an expedition down there, we learn something new about how life works in extreme environments. It's a reminder that the ocean still holds so many secrets, and some of the most incredible places on Earth are hiding in its deepest, darkest corners. 10. Strange creatures roam the deep sea. You know what's really fascinating? The deeper you go into the ocean, the weirder things get. Seriously, the deep sea is like a completely different world, filled with creatures that look like they're straight out of a sci-fi movie. Because in the deep ocean, it's not just dark, it's cold. The pressure is intense, and there's barely any food. So the animals that live down there have had to evolve in the strangest and most unique ways just to survive. Take the anglerfish, for example. It's probably one of the most famous deep-sea creatures. It's got this eerie little light hanging from its head to lure in prey, kind of like a natural fishing rod. Pretty creepy, but incredibly clever. Then there's the gulper eel. It has a ridiculously huge mouth that can open wide enough to swallow prey twice its size. Or the vampire squid, which sounds terrifying but is actually quite small and glides through the water with these deep red webbed arms. And we haven't even mentioned the glass octopus, a nearly transparent creature that looks like it's made of jelly. You can literally see its internal organs through its body. Or the blobfish, which, yeah, it really does look like a blob out of water, but it's perfectly suited for life in deep pressure zones. These creatures might look bizarre to us, but every odd shape, strange feature, or glowing body part serves a purpose, whether it's for hunting, camouflage, or survival in complete darkness. The deep sea is still largely unexplored, so who knows what other weird and wonderful creatures are still waiting to be discovered? It just goes to show life always finds a way, even in the most extreme environments. And honestly, that's what makes the ocean so endlessly fascinating. 11. Ocean currents control the climate. Have you ever wondered why some places on Earth are warm and sunny while others stay cold most of the year, even when they're at the same latitude? Well, a big part of the answer is actually hidden beneath the ocean surface. It's all about ocean currents. These currents are like massive conveyor belts of water, constantly moving heat around the planet. They carry warm water from the equator toward the poles and bring cold water back down toward the equator. It's a global system, and it's one of the main reasons why our climate stays relatively balanced. One of the most famous currents is the Gulf Stream. It flows from the Gulf of Mexico up the east coast of the US and across the Atlantic toward Europe. Thanks to the Gulf Stream, places like Western Europe are much warmer than other regions at the same latitude, even warmer than parts of Canada that are actually farther south. These currents don't just affect air temperature, they also influence weather patterns, rainfall, and even hurricane activity. When something disrupts them, like melting polar ice or rising ocean temperatures, it can throw entire climate systems out of balance. That's why scientists keep a close eye on ocean circulation. If these currents slow down or change direction, it could lead to more extreme weather, sea level rise, and even long-term shifts in global temperatures. So while ocean currents may not be something we see every day, they're constantly working in the background, quietly shaping the climate and helping to keep life on Earth stable. Pretty incredible, right? It's just another reminder of how deeply connected everything is, from the water in our oceans to the air we breathe. 12. The ocean stores carbon dioxide. Here's something that might surprise you. The ocean is actually one of the biggest carbon storage systems on the planet. Yep, it doesn't just give us oxygen and regulate the climate. It also absorbs and stores a massive amount of carbon dioxide, CO2, from the atmosphere. You see, every time we burn fossil fuels, like gas, coal, or oil, we release CO2 into the air. That buildup is what's driving climate change. But thankfully, the ocean steps in and helps us out by absorbing a huge portion of that carbon, more than a quarter of all human-made CO2 emissions, in fact. So how does it do that? Well, there are a couple of ways. First, there's something called the physical carbon pump. Cold water at the surface absorbs CO2, and then ocean currents carry that carbon-rich water down into the deep ocean, where it can stay trapped for hundreds or even thousands of years. Then there's the biological carbon pump, and this one's really interesting. Tiny organisms like phytoplankton absorb CO2 through photosynthesis, just like trees on land. When these organisms die, they sink to the ocean floor, taking the carbon with them. It's like nature's way of locking carbon away in a safe place. But here's the catch. The more CO2 the ocean absorbs, the more it starts to change. We're seeing something called ocean acidification, which makes it harder for marine life like corals, shellfish, and plankton to survive. That can disrupt the entire food chain and harm ecosystems that millions of people depend on. So while the ocean is doing us a huge favor by helping to reduce carbon in the atmosphere, it's also paying a heavy price. That's why it's so important that we not only appreciate what the ocean does, but also take steps to protect it. Because if we want to fight climate change, we can't do it without the ocean on our side. 13. There's still so much we don't know. You know what's one of the most fascinating things about the ocean? It's the fact that even with all our science, technology, and research, there's still so much we don't know. Seriously, for all the discoveries we've made, the ocean still holds countless mysteries. We've only explored a small portion of it, and every time scientists go on an expedition, they end up finding something completely unexpected. A new species, a strange underwater formation, or an ecosystem we didn't even know existed. It's kind of humbling, isn't it? We live on a planet that's mostly covered in water, and yet we've only scratched the surface. There are entire regions of the seafloor we haven't mapped, deep sea trenches that have never been fully explored, and marine species that have never been seen by human eyes. And it's not just about discovering new creatures or features. There are still big questions that remain unanswered, like how exactly deep ocean ecosystems function, how life first formed in the sea, or what role the ocean might play in solving global problems like climate change, food security, or medical breakthroughs. Some researchers even believe there could be completely different types of life forms hidden in extreme environments like hydrothermal vents, places that challenge everything we thought we knew about biology. So while we've come a long way in understanding the ocean, it's clear we're still just at the beginning. And honestly, that's what makes it so exciting. The ocean is one of the last great frontiers on Earth, and who knows what we'll discover next. It's a reminder that curiosity is powerful and that there's always more to learn, even in our own world, right beneath the waves. 14. The ocean influences our lives daily. You might not think about it much, but the truth is, the ocean impacts our lives every single day, even if we live nowhere near the coast. It's not just a big body of water sitting out there. It's actually working behind the scenes 24/7, shaping the weather, influencing the air we breathe, and even affecting the food we eat. Let's start with something simple: oxygen. More than half of the oxygen we breathe comes from the ocean, mostly from tiny microscopic plants called phytoplankton. That means every second breath you take, you can thank the ocean for it. Then there's weather and climate. Ocean temperatures and currents directly influence things like rainfall, storms, droughts, and even the changing seasons. Ever heard of El Niño or La Niña? Those are oceanic events that can affect global weather patterns for months at a time. Even the food we eat is influenced by the ocean. Millions of people rely on fish and seafood as a primary source of protein. Not to mention, many fertilizers and nutrients that help grow crops on land actually come from marine-derived products. And let's not forget the economy. From fishing and tourism to shipping and trade routes, so much of global business depends on a healthy, functioning ocean. Whether it's goods being transported across the seas or beach tourism supporting local communities, the ocean touches every corner of our lives. It even influences our culture, our stories, our music, and our traditions. The ocean has always been a part of human history. It's inspired explorers, poets, artists, and entire civilizations. So even if you don't see it every day, make no mistake, the ocean is part of your life, whether you're sipping coffee in a city apartment or walking barefoot on a beach. It's one of the most powerful forces on Earth, quietly shaping the world around us every single day. So there you have it, some truly mind-blowing facts about the ocean that show just how powerful, mysterious, and essential it really is. From underwater waterfalls and glowing creatures to mountains taller than Everest and the ocean's role in keeping our planet alive, there's so much more going on beneath the surface than most of us ever imagine. And honestly, we've only scratched the surface. The ocean covers over 70% of our planet, and yet we still know so little about it. It's full of secrets, untapped energy, strange life forms, and endless beauty. It's not just a distant place we see on maps or visit on vacation. It's a living, breathing system that shapes our world every single day. If you found this video fascinating, don't forget to like, subscribe to my channel. Let me know in the comments which ocean fact surprised you the most, or if there's another topic you'd love me to explore next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.